Hey everybody. I wanted to spend a little bit of time focusing on Washington's foreign policy. It's something that our textbook doesn't do very well. And so as we've gone over in class, looking at the rise of those first two political parties under Jefferson and Hamilton, I wanted to take a look at some of the things specifically that happened while Washington was president that defined and continued to push two groups of people in opposite directions. So the title of this video was Washington's Foreign Policy and Farewell Address, but I'm not sure how far into the farewell address we're going to get. I might save that for a different later video. So as we go forward here then, we want to make sure we understand that America as of 1790, we're out of the revolution, right? These men that you see on the screen here, this is Washington's cabinet, and they are tasked with dealing with an America post-revolution. They feel like our revolution is all set and done. Whether you want to talk about the first revolution, or the second revolution, the one that created the Constitution, all that's behind us. But in France, the revolution is just beginning, and it's this revolution. I want you to understand the French Revolution, even though it was 3,000 miles away overseas, much of Washington's presidency, as well as Adams's presidency and Jefferson's presidency, and even beyond, is touched, influenced in some way by this revolution, because as it was only beginning July 14th, 1789, France is turned on its head. And if you remember correctly, France is our ally. We have a treaty of alliance with them that came out of the American Revolution, and we have a responsibility of supporting them. So what happens in France divides our leadership in a way that was very unexpected and unplanned. And so as we're just starting out, we're pulled into things that will define the United States, especially when we talk about the role and influence of political parties. Note that the beginning of the French Revolution is just 3 months after Washington is inaugurated as our first president, and our first Congress takes its first steps in being the legislative branch that's responsible for the Bill of Rights and establishing a judiciary and everything, right? So super significant timing. So as France overthrows its king, its monarchy, it reestablishes a society that's based on a republic, right? So the notion of a republican form of government comes directly from the United States, and so their flag, the French tricolor, represents their desire to be us. They want to be us, and so an early dispute emerges out of Washington's cabinet between Jefferson and Hamilton regarding their view on how we should respond. Should we honor our treaty with France? Or should we decline? Should we ignore it? Because as we will see in just a second, France is in a world of hurts right away. And so the question of should we support the French Revolution or should we oppose it is part of the division between the early Federalists and early Democratic Republicans. Now, it would be simple if it was just, a French Revolution, but it turns into a war. Every monarchy in Europe is at risk now because of these revolutionary ideas. And so all of the nations in Europe rise up against France. So it becomes France versus every other major nation in that continent or subcontinent. If you want to learn more about the French Revolution, there's so much to discuss. I think John Green, you may know him as an author, but I know him as the guy who does crash course videos. He has a fantastic crash course on the French Revolution. You can see, pause this video. I don't have a link here, but you can see you can type these into your browser and go directly to learn more about that event. Now, because of the war between France and everyone in Europe, we have to be careful about how we respond. Our response is going to define how we are viewed, not just by France, but also by Great Britain. Right? We have a treaty with Great Britain of peace. We also have a responsibility to them. We have debts to them. We want to establish them as a trading partner, but at the same time we want to be able to trade freely and openly with France. So we have a very very particular responsibility in our relationships here. And as Jefferson is Secretary of State, his advice is to side with France. But again, Hamilton is like, no, we don't have anything to provide for them. We don't have anything to give them. So we have nothing to do in to be able to respond in a way that's meaningful. We have no money, remember. Our treasury is empty. And as Secretary of the Treasury, he has that responsibility to say. So Washington asks, how should we respond? He ends up siding with Hamilton and issues a neutrality proclamation, which reads, as you can see on the screen, whereas it appears that a state of war exists between Austria, Prussia, Sardinia, the Great Britain, and United Netherlands on the one side, and France on the other, the duty and interest of the United States require that they should, with sincerity and good faith, adopt and pursue a conduct friendly and impartial toward the belligerent powers. Washington's neutrality proclamation makes it clear that we are to be friendly and impartial, neutral. And this becomes Washington's legacy. To be neutral with regard to European wars is something that Washington's going to make clear very much later in his farewell address. Our policy of neutrality will be followed by every president for 140 years. All the way through even World War I, until we're pulled into World War I, and then even afterwards until World War II, is our policy something different. So this neutrality is Washington's legacy, and it carries through. It begins a policy of maintaining or trying to maintain isolationism. Now, just to make it clear that everyone up until Franklin Delano Roosevelt had this policy of neutrality, I want to play you a clip of FDR's one of FDR's campaign speeches in 1940, where he speaks to Bostonians for why he should be elected. He says this:
I have said this before, but I shall say it again and again and again. Your boys are not going to be sent into any foreign war.
So he says it, he means it, but he can't control the circumstances that come later as we are bombed by Japan and pulled into World War II. Unfortunate. Now, while Washington is considering this stance on neutrality, there is a public opinion problem. And it comes from an ambassador to the United States from France, whose goal is to encourage public opinion to change Washington's mind. See, American public opinion at this time is still very pro-French. This is before the Reign of Terror, and if you watch that Crash Course video, you'll understand the Reign of Terror is where they start beheading people. Some 40,000 people are thought to have gone under the guillotine as they try to restructure French society. But that's in France. People are still behind the French Revolution. While Washington debates neutrality, and Citizen Genet knows that Washington's policy is to remain neutral. Citizen Genet comes over here and he tries to stir up and rally American public support for France. He does this behind Washington's back. In some of the speeches, he talks bad about Washington. He badmouths him and says, you've got to get rid of your president and support the French. Now, not only does he stir up public opinion, which is something that ambassadors shouldn't do in the first place, but he also does things that are directly against presidential orders. Because of our policy of neutrality, Citizen Genet, he issues what are called privateers, which is a commissioning of a private vessel, a vessel that belongs to an individual. Actually, these ships were British ships that were captured by the French. They're retrofitted with guns, and they're sent out by Citizen Genet to be as the French Navy out of American ports, right? This is a direct violation of Washington's view of neutrality, direct violation of presidential orders. But these four ships, the Republicain, the Anti-George, the Sans-Culotte, and the Citizen Genet, again, names one after himself. The one that's Anti-George, supposedly is Anti-George III, but you can read it as Anti-George Washington if you want. Citizen Genet would want it that way. He made Washington's neutrality proclamation very unpopular. And note, and I need you to understand that our trade with Britain at this time was necessary for our economy, for sustaining our economic ties, especially for the people in the northern states. And so by him doing this, it was very negative. And even Jefferson agrees that Citizen Genet has to go. Hamilton now is obvious. He's very clear that that Citizen Genet must be dismissed. He must be sent back to France. And Jefferson agrees. He oversteps his bounds. His lack of regard for diplomatic protocol results in a rare agreement between these two men. Now, Citizen Genet actually doesn't. He's dismissed as ambassador, but he stays in the United States as a political refugee, because if he goes back to France, he'll be one of the ones that is beheaded. So he's fired, but stays. He actually lives a life in New York, marries an American woman, and so on. But because of the disagreement between Hamilton and Jefferson and Washington over foreign policy, Jefferson resigns, goes back to Monticello. He's frustrated with these pro-British policies, and it gets worse as we move into the Jay Treaty. The Jay Treaty is an example of pro-British policy in that go back to the treaty between Britain and the United States that ended the American Revolution. Britain promised to leave American forts. They don't do that. They actually changed their mind after the treaty was ratified and after the treaty was signed, and they said that we'll leave our forts when you repay your debts. Well, we can't repay our debts. And so Washington sends John Jay to go over there to negotiate a treaty to try and get British soldiers out of their forts that are still in our backyard in the Ohio River Valley. And Britain agrees in this Jay Treaty to abandon their forts in exchange for a favored trading status. This is very, very anti-Republican view, right? This treaty of amity, commerce, and navigation between Great Britain and the United States, if it's passed, is going to send Republicans in an uproar. Now, of course, Jefferson's opposed, and any treaty that's signed or negotiated on behalf of the president must go through the Senate for approval, right? The Republicans believe that this treaty strengthens economic ties with an aristocratic Britain while creating tension between the United States and a Republican-based France. And so this, while it doesn't violate our treaty or our Washington's proclamation of neutrality, it does make it clear that we are more pro-British than we are pro-French. And John Jay, when he comes home, he recognizes the unpopularity of his treaty. He makes a statement that he believes he could travel from one end of the United States to the other by the light of burning effigies of himself. You can see this isn't actually John Jay, but it's a dummy. An effigy is a dummy that's made in the likeness of someone, a public official, and it's usually burnt at the stake to make it clear how people are unhappy with that public official. Now, the Senate must approve this treaty, and all treaties must be ratified by 2/3 vote of the Senate. This is approved exactly 20-10, right? And that's a recognition of how divided America was about this treaty with Britain. So that's the Jay Treaty. The Pinckney Treaty was a little more favorable, right? This doesn't have a problem. This doesn't have much of a problem getting passed. But the Pinckney Treaty was with Spain. Spain was, however, on the side of Great Britain against France. What I want you to understand about Pinckney Treaty, and Charles Pinckney is from South Carolina. The issue here is that this area in southwest United States was disputed. The treaty between Great Britain and the United States that ended the American Revolution wasn't clear, and so Spain thought this was part of theirs, part of Florida. We thought it was ours, and so it needed to be satisfied. Also, what happens as a result of this is that we have free navigation of the Mississippi River, right? What is resulted in the Pinckney Treaty is that we get the opportunity to sail our vessels out of the port of New Orleans. So it means all the people that are settling in this area don't have to go over the Appalachian Mountains. They can take the river that's closest to the Mississippi, put their goods down and out this port, and then sell it here, so that way it can go out the Port of New Orleans. It gives us right of deposit there. right? So I'm going to end here. We'll catch up later.